The self is the subject of one's own experience of phenomena, perception, emotions, thoughts. In phenomenology, it is conceived as what experiences, and there isn't any experiencing without an experiencer, the self. The self is therefore an immediate given, an intrinsic dimension of the fact of experiencing phenomena. In some other trends of philosophy, the self is instead seen as requiring a reflexive perception of oneself, the individual person, meaning the self, in such a view, is an object of consciousness. Sorry, that may have seemed a bit pretentious, and I didn't write it since I don't know how to words good, but the essence of that phrase is that you and your character are two intrinsically linked yet infinitely different personas, and you need to know the former in order to play the latter. It's the difference between character, the self, and character, the hero. Today, we'll be diving into how exactly you build a heroic or anti-heroic character in D&D, as well as the difference between roleplay and roleplay. Let's start off with what's already there. Stereotypes: the elven mage, the dwarven cleric, the orc barbarian, the halfling rogue, or just simple races and classes. In the very first iteration of D&D, there was no differentiation between class and race. You had mage, fighter, dwarf, elf, and something else I can't remember right now. Regardless, we've moved up in the world since then. But these stereotypes are excellent starting points for your character. What you choose in the very beginning as a simple idea will impact your stats to start with. Do I want to be strong? Do I want to be intelligent? Charismatic? What do you think your character can do? Can he cast spells? Is he an able fighter? Is he sneaky? Read up the first 2 chapters of the Player's Handbook for the 3.5 edition to get a sense of where your numbers should be going. Wizards need intelligence, fighters need strength and constitution, rogues need dexterity, clerics need to be wise, and so on. There's a lot of rules to look up, but don't forget to read the fluff as well. This will give you a basic idea of what each ability and class can do. And don't forget that this is a team game. Talk amongst yourselves and see who would like to do what in the party. We'll be getting back to that in just a bit. So who are you after you've hit these points of interest? Or rather, who is it that you want to be? Remember the difference between reality and fantasy. In real life, you might want to be an architect or an engineer. Here, you can be just about anything. Okay, so rules are scary. There's just so many of them. You just wanted to play an adventure. Where do you start? If this is your first time playing D&D in any edition, there's a whole host of pre-made characters that you can choose from, or that the DM might create for you. These are excellent starting points to get you going. From here, you can start understanding the basic construction of a player character and what they can do. And never forget, imagination is everything. Even pre-made characters will quickly become your own. As I said, you'll need to know yourself before you can play someone else. A lot of you will be going into this person that you're about to take control of. Okay, so you've picked a race, a class, you've gotten your roles for it, as well as skills and feats, but who is this character? What do they like? What do they dislike? Do they have a tendency towards law or chaos? Good or evil? We'll discuss alignments in a future episode probably. What's their backstory? That's super important, not just for the players, but also for the DM, who can more readily incorporate that story into the world. Immersion is a combined effort. Again, another discussion for another time. But to get a general idea, let's look at some stereotypes again. Have you played any D&D video games? Think about those characters. Jaheira, Minsk, Anomen, and so on. What drove them? How did they interact? Why were they on this path? Not a fan of D&D video games? Not a problem. Check out Lord of the Rings. Who's Aragorn? Who's Gimli? Who's Frodo? Who's Gandalf? Better yet, who are the other characters that you like? Who's Faramir? Who's Eowyn? Who's Elrond? Lord of the Rings is not your fandom? Not a problem. What's Han Solo like? What's Link like? Oh, wait, maybe bad example. Okay, fine. What's Shepard like? How did you build him in your mind? What's Geralt like? And to continue the use of stereotypes, there are so many standard backstories to look at. Orphaned, born rich, blacksmith's apprentice, squire to a knight, child of a lord, raised by druids. How do these affect your characters? Arcanum has a very broad selection of such backstories that can be a great inspiration. As you can see, it's a lot more fun to think about who your character is rather than just what he can do. The what is just the means to an end. The who is the very meaning of the end. Don't let your dice get the better of you. Don't let roleplay trump roleplay. The rules are great guidelines for creating a character that you can play in this world, but they are just that. Guidelines, not restrictions. Use your imagination to come up with the best reason for which your character might have those abilities to start with. Alright, so you've kind of gotten everything down. Almost. Let's move on to something more ambiguous. Alignments. What's good? What is evil? Law, chaos. Each has a description, but those are more like cliff notes on the infinite tome that is human morality. At the end of the day, they are, much like all other rules, guidelines. A good DM will know how to react to alignments and point out when something is out of character and so on. It's best to trust the DM unless you feel like you've got a strong argument, and aren't just angry. Seriously, don't take alignments too seriously. Seriously. Right, so now you've made your character, but this is a group game. So on to the next topic. What is your role in the party? Do not limit yourself to your abilities. Yes, you'll have terms like tank and blaster and rogue or skill monkey, but you'll note certain interactions between characters, different viewpoints, interests, goals, ideals, beliefs. While most of the time players should work together, it is inevitable that sometimes differences of opinion may arise. So what do? Usually it's best to settle by the rule of most. Just talk amongst yourselves. It's usually unpleasant if the DM has to intervene to stop infighting, though a good DM will mediate and lead the discussion to a useful and mutually agreed upon end. Not always, but that, again, is for another episode entirely. Great, you look like you're ready to go, right? Well, there's just one more thing you have to take care of. Your gear. Most first level adventurers have starting gear that they can use. For every other level, there's a wealth table that, well, you know what? You can figure that one out. Maybe read a bit more of the book in the meantime. By the time you're done with these, you are just about ready to jump into the world. And now you'll discover who your character really is, when asked to interact with the world. But that, again, is for another time. In the meantime, for those of you who are interested in gaining a bit more insight on what a Bildungsroman is, aka the journey of the hero, I suggest reading The Hero with 1,000 Faces by Joseph Campbell. It's not 100% applicable to D&D, but it can give you a number of templates to build your character off of. So that about wraps it up. I hope this has helped raise some questions in regard to who and what your character can be, and led to some interesting new adventures. So that's all for me. Slevin out. Cheers.